was the IFFI Lifetime Achievement Award. Dan Wolman's film include youthful comedy Lemon Pepsicle, To the Very Personal Distance and The Foreign Sister, the sensitive yet complex The Dreamer. His first short film, The Living, in 1965 won Best Film, Best Director, Best Editor prizes at the American Photographic Society of America Film Festival. Dan is a proclaimed Israeli cinema maker over 40 years. Please join me in welcoming very versatile, unique, and experienced filmmaker, Dan Wolman. As he comes up the stage, I request Assistant Director of IFFI to kindly accompany him, Ankur Lahoti. We would like to appreciate your presence and with a small memento, which is a token of love and appreciation. So I request Ankur, Assistant Director, IFFI, to kindly do the honors. Please give a round of applause to him.
Carry on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'll take it. Okay. Can I start? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for joining. I request each one of you to kindly switch off your mobile or at least put them on a silent mode. Thank you.
Kill the lights on the audience? Can they close this door? I was asked to deliver a master class. I don't like the word master class. It's just, you know, going to be a class. I'm not a teacher. And I think whoever is going to listen to what I have to say is not going to make better films because of what I'm going to say. His films are not going to get better reviews. They're not going to make more money. I will speak, I hope that among the people listening to me, there are artists. It doesn't have to be filmmakers. It could be playwrights or painters or dancers. And I think that because of my experience, I might have some tips. And you know, that I think that there's a lot of information that I could give, and I think I don't like these master classes where you hear a lot of information. I hope that it'll be also an experience, so we won't just hear facts. And I'll try to speak about ideas, because I think that really making films is about ideas. It's very interesting how little things bother me. You know, I suddenly hear voices from another cinema and people here are breaking glasses, but soon I'll relax. Okay. Excuse me? You can if you want. It's not, okay. We rehearsed before, it was without, I liked it. Now it's up to you. Maybe later if you want to take, you know, some shots of the people, then we'll put the lights on. It's okay? Yes. Okay, thanks. Okay, look, I think, first of all, you know, I'm so honored to get this prize here, and I'm saying to myself, I hope it's not only for films, I hope it's also for the way. Because here you have a person who is not rich, who is not upper middle class, just a regular person who, in spite of the fact that he wasn't tied to big producers and so on, is from, let's say, the last 50 years. 50 years ago, I shot my first film, The Dreamer, which was in Cannes. Up till now, every 3-4 years, I come up with a film. And some of these films are really going against all common sense. Like here in India, they speak about the, you know, speaking about the mainstream. And I'm saying my films are not mainstream. My first film took place in an old age home. My second film also dealt with old people, was shot in black and white. So a lot of people said to me, Dan, this will be your last film. And so I'm saying over the years also, the subjects that I've taken are very, on the one hand you can say daring, and on the other hand, you know, they are very marginal, you know, dealing with all kinds of problems of, again, old people, of migrants, of, and others. So the purpose for me when I speak to, like this time, is that I hope to meet that in the audience there's somebody who is like me, crazy like me, who has ideas, doesn't have the means. Maybe I can give him, you know, strength how to go, and so by telling him what I'm doing. First of all, you know, when I wrote my screenplays in the beginning, you know, I wrote a screenplay. It took me 8 months or a year or something like that. I wrote a screenplay, and then I submitted it to a private investor or a foundation that gives, or a TV station. And then, you know, after some time, either they didn't answer or I got a negative answer. So again, you know, it's for somebody who puts in so much and believes so much, it really was painful. So this, we have to hear the noises all the time from the other cinema. This is the way it is here. It's okay. I will try to overcome it. I apologize. So what am I doing? You know, because it was so painful, what am I doing now? What I'm doing is, I am all the time, every time, I'm preparing 2 kinds of scripts. I have one screenplay where I'm using my full imagination. I don't mind. I can have 20 airplanes, you know, ships, the army of Napoleon, whatever it is, thousands of extras. And there's another script which I'm writing at the same time, which is below the belt, meaning something that I can do on my own with friends. So every time I say, I always give myself a date, and I say next May, if I don't have the patience of waiting, you know, and depending on other people to make my film, I'm going to do my film. And so I'm writing something. It's going to be a story that happens in one apartment, something I can control, or I'll find a way of doing it. Yeah, let's say, sometimes, like I made a film called Soldier of the Night. It was the first horror film shot in my country, and it was done with 6 people. There were, you know, 2, a female actor, a male actor. There was the cameraman. There was a soundman, and me. You know, we didn't have a boom man, we didn't have any makeup people, no, nothing. You know, and I'm telling you that the film went to many festivals, or like I had Ben's biography, which is going to be shown here, I think maybe tomorrow or the day after. It's a film done on a very, very low budget, and it ended up at Moscow Film Festival with I think there was a film with Meryl Streep there with, I don't know, maybe $50 million, and there was my little film at the same time. So there was something, you know, maybe in the idea which was fresh or something like that. So this is like an advice. And I will continue now with a little story which illustrates my point. I want to speak about hunters. In the Bible, there are 2 hunters mentioned. There is one, it's called Nimrod, and he's a very, you know, unique hunter, because when he hunts his, let's say, antelope, he, you know, prepares very well, and he's very patient. So he waits, all day. He prepares his bow and arrow. He has this one arrow, and he's very precise. He waits for a certain time when the antelope is coming to the river to drink, and he waits until the right second. He shoots the arrow, and he kills the antelope, and he takes it home, and the family has something to eat. And the other one is Esau, you know, and Esau is the one who is not so patient, and he doesn't mind working a lot. So what Esau is, he's shooting, you know, maybe 200 arrows during the day. He shoots them in all ways, and then at a certain point, you know, maybe one of his arrows hits and kills an antelope, and he brings home. So I'm saying both of them achieved the same thing, right? One of them shot one arrow, you know, killed an antelope, and the other one shot many, many, many. A lot of them were, you know, badly shot, etc. And he got this same antelope. So I'm saying to you as artists, what kind of filmmakers do you want to be? Do you want to, you know, go to a producer, write a screenplay, wait until the right time, play tennis with the producer's daughter, go to cocktail parties, flatter people, listen to people, and then after 7 years make a good film, the film that you wanted? Or you want to, every year, 2 years, make a film? You know, what kind of, do you want to be like that kind of a hunter or this? So I'm saying, me, I want to be the hunter who is foolish, is not that professional, but I believe that it's very important to work all the time. I think, for me, I don't mind making bad films. You know, in other words, I don't take it too seriously. In other words, I'm very hurt when the critics don't like my films and so on. But, you know, I've learned to say, okay, you know, there'll be another film, there'll be another film. It's very important to me to, and also not to, you know, I'm not trying to make a masterpiece. I'm saying, you know, like, think of Van Gogh, the painter, you know, when he painted his sunflowers. I don't really, 90%, I think, 95% is the making of them. And even, let's say, when you take a screenplay, you know, you write a screenplay, people said, you know, I worked on a screenplay and then, you know, nobody liked it and I wasted a lot of time and so on. When I write a screenplay, my attitude is, you know, first of all, I envision the film as I'm writing, I have ideas and so on, so it's a lot of fun. And the making is great. And then the film, okay, got bad reviews or good reviews and so on. I'm saying the fun was there in the making. Because we are limited in time, and I'm telling you, sometimes, like I was in Mumbai a while ago, and I was asked to speak to people who are going to be actors in film, you know, young people. And so, you know, I spoke to them about things that happen in my world in the way I direct actors, and what I think is important and not. And I can speak about that also for 2 hours. But here, you know, we have a limited time, and I want to use this time, and I still want to also give you a chance to ask me questions. So I'm going to speak maybe sometimes very fast. Only when I speak about ideas, I'm going to slow down. The importance of, you know, short films. I'm going to speak short films, I'm going to speak medium films, then I'm going to speak about features. So I made a short film. I'm going to show it to you. It's the first film that I made, you know, again, in the mid-60s. And I think I came to my, the place where I was studying films. I came to America to study. At that time, there were no film schools in my country. And I was working during the day. It was an evening school because I couldn't afford to go to a normal school. And I remember the first day I climbed up the steps, there was a sign there, and it said that there is a competition for a 3-minute film. And I said, can one make a 3-minute film and really move people, like a song that you hear can really touch people? And I, you know, then I thought of ideas, you know, for films. And the thing is that till now, you know, when there are certain things that happen, I say, wow, that will make a great short film. In other words, it's like a novelist, you know, who writes long novels, and still he says, I have an idea for a poem. I'm going to write a poem. So till now, I go on making short films from time to time. And I'm going to my father, who is not alive anymore, but my father told me once something which I think is also good advice. And he said, let's say you're doing something, you're working very hard in a screenplay, and then you say, I'm going to take a break, okay? I'm going to relax. So he said, better than take a break is work on something else, you know? So, you know, again, so I'm saying I'm doing this, and many times I'm doing like, I'm working on a feature film, and then I take a break and I say, okay, maybe I can make a documentary, you know? And so I'm putting time in that, or I'm reading, or I'm doing something which not just relaxing. It doesn't mean that, you know, I don't have the time to drink beer, you know, look at the sea or watch a soccer game and do the things that I like. But still, I'm saying a lot of the time, I think it's refreshing to work in 2 fields at the same time. And I think many times I find that my documentary has influence on the feature that I'm making, or something that I'm like that I do. So I'm going to tell you now a little story. This is a film, a short film it's a story that I love to tell. It's a little film that I saw in America, made by a 16, 17-year-old, I think, many, many years ago. And that film is, for me, a good example because it also, what I liked, and it's something that we had also in my first film school, they said the first films that you have to make have to go back to the power of the silent era. In other words, you cannot use dialogue. So if today, let's say my granddaughter at the age of 5 or 6 already is playing with her telephone and she's already editing her films, you know, and the films use sound and use dialogue, I'm saying I like films which have very little dialogue. That's why I like detectives and so on. And television for me is like what they say, the talking box. You know, you use a lot of dialogue. So I'm going to give you now 2 examples of little films that don't use any dialogue, and I still think that they do something to you. Okay. Imagine now, I want you to use your imagination. Imagine that you see now a fisherman. The fisherman is about my age, and you see that he's walking on, you know, he's walking. And you see that in one hand he's holding a rod, and the other one he's holding a basket, and you see that he's walking. The way he looks, you know, he was selected, he was cast by the director. When you look at his face, you see that they reflect that he has been through many, you know, there's something about him that he's been through many storms, and, you know, he's been through life, and he does this all the time. There is a routine, the way he walks like that with his rod, you know, in his basket, he walks like this. And how much time do you need in a film to show that he's crossing many kinds of landscapes? How much? You don't need more than 10 seconds, you know, so 2 seconds he's walking on a bridge, then he's walking in a forest, then on a road, you know, so then in 10 seconds, 15 seconds, very short time, you see that it takes him time until he gets to the seashore where there is a dock. Like in my country, the dock is made of rocks. In America, it's made of, you know, like pieces of wood. So, you know, he comes to his place, you know, and he takes down the basket, puts down the rod, and he opens the basket, and from it he pulls, there's a little jar, and in the jar there are worms, you know. So he takes, you know, the hook on his, the fishing hook, you know, and he puts on the worm, you know, and then he goes like this, and he's holding it like that, you know, he throws it to the sea, and he's waiting to see what will happen. How much time does it take for a filmmaker to show that he's been standing there for 6 hours, you know? Maybe the director will want to show the shadow, you know, as it moves. Maybe there are already 20 cigarette butts on the floor. He's been smoking, and every time, you know, he crushed another cigarette butt to show that. And maybe he bends down again, you know, after some time when he pulls the, you know, the fishing from the water. He sees that the bait is gone, and he, you know, he opens again the basket. He takes out the jar, and in the jar we see that there are only 2 or 3 worms left. So again, within a very short time, you can show that time is passing. And there he is, you know, and he puts another one, you know, he puts another worm on, and he goes like this, you know, and he's waiting again. And then, you know, at a certain point, that maybe there is a shot from the sea. You see that he's scratching himself, you know, and he's waiting there like this. And after some time, you know, he's like that on his, on the dock there. And then, you know, he pulls it again. He sees again that the worm is gone. He puts, you know, like the last worm. And, you know, he's a bit bored, you know, and he takes the rod and he sticks it, you know, between 2 panels of wood. And, you know, he starts walking like this on the beach, you know. He's tired already, you know, and he goes like this, and suddenly he sees a paper basket you know, in the sand, and he lifts up the paper basket, and inside there is an apple and a sandwich, and actually he's very hungry, you know, so he takes a bite, you know, from the sandwich, and suddenly he feels that there's something wrong, and there's a piece of metal sticking from his cheek, and you see that there is blood coming down, you know, and he's trying to take the piece of metal out, and he cannot. And we see that there's a little string, you know, pulling him into the water. And the water, you know, and he's fighting it, you know, but it's pulling him like that, and blood is coming down. And then you see that slowly the water reaches up to here, the water reaches up to here, the water reaches up to here, until we don't see him at all. There's only a picture of his rod on the dock. Okay. So this is, you know, a short film that I saw. Now, let's suppose that you made this film. What do you need to make this film? You need an uncle that would fit the part. It doesn't have to be somebody that you're paying, because it doesn't have to speak, it just has to look right. And then, I mean, maybe you need some makeup to make the blood believable. But when I saw this film, I'm saying to myself, you know, let's suppose that I'm a rich producer, and I'm saying, you know, this director, you know, he has talent. He knew where to put the camera. I believed the fisherman. I believed his anxiety, his desperation when he, you know, was fighting against that power that took revenge for all the fish that he, you know, got before. So that kind of a film. So I'm saying that if somebody like you says, I'm getting some friends and say, you know, I'm experimenting, I'm making a little film in this world of cinema, I think it's a very good thing. And I would say as an advice that when I was a student, there were some people studying film and they said, we made this film and you know, the film is so-so, but we learned a lot. And I think it's a wrong attitude. For me, from the beginning, I said, I'm making a 3-minute film. I wanted to be shown on television. I wanted to go to festivals. I wanted to win. I wanted, you know, I'm saying, here is a chance to not to treat anything as exercise. If you're making an effort, and I'm jumping now to something that what I should be saying later, but I'm saying the same thing. Somebody shows me a film which is 50 minutes. And I'm saying, you put all the effort, 50 minutes. Where are you going to show these 50 minutes? You know, the market is for films which are 82 minutes, 90 minutes, 100 minutes. So with that effort, you should have done, you know, a feature film. Okay, now I'm going to show you something, to show you a film that I made. It's a little film. But I want to maybe say a few words before. No, excuse me, don't kill the lights, sorry. I saw something. I was walking in Central Park in New York, and I saw something, and I said, wow, you know, I think I can make an interesting film from this. And I even told it to one of my teachers, and he said, Dan, do it, and then you'll get it out of your system, as if, you know, it's a waste of time. So I'm going to show you this little film that I made. And again, you know, the whole film is 3.5 minutes or something like that. So I want you to see this little film. I'm telling you again, it opened a lot of doors for me at the time. And also it gave me a prize money of, I think something like $6,000. At the time it was, you know, an enormous, and it really helped me survive. But I'm saying, you know, it's a little film. So please, you can show the film. Okay. Shall I go down? Okay, I think here is okay. The people with the phones, please, you know, I'm asking you, please kill the telephones. It's not fair. You're blinding other people. That person over there, please. one more short film which I made in India. This is in 2004. I came for the first film festival. I was in Ocean Film Festival in New Delhi. And it was the first time I was in India. And I came with my wife. I don't remember why, maybe because the flight was late, so we arrived at around midnight. And we called Aruna Vasudi, who was the head of the festival, and there was no answer. And then we tried the office. Suddenly there was somebody there, and they said the hotel which we were booked in was completely full, and we're going to stay at the Imperial Hotel. I don't know if the Imperial Hotel is a colonial hotel, just unbelievable hotel. So we were there, and you know, you needed a bicycle to get from the entrance to the room. And we were there, we slept there. The next morning, we walked out to the street, and I said to my wife, listen, I think I can make a very interesting short film here. And I had a little camera, and I shot a little film, and I'm going to describe the film to you now. Again, my wife helped me. So I started with a chandelier in my room, you know, and I went from the, I'm sorry, maybe I should say that the name of the film is From Bed to Bed. So I started from the chandelier, and I went down to the bed. I stayed on the bed maybe 2 seconds, 1, 2. And then the camera, the whole film is in one shot. You know, I went so like this to the bed, then I went down, and then I started walking in the corridor. It was a long corridor. I don't know, there was something there of marble with the petals of roses. And on the side, there were these big columns of brass, and, you know, some people were sitting down, they were cleaning them. He said, you know, good morning, sir, good morning, you know, and I'm saying, you know, with the camera, I'm going like this, continuing. Then after, and there were many, you know, rooms on the sides, all kind of very fancy rooms, and you went into the entrance. And at the entrance, there was a big vase with flowers, unbelievable flowers, and there were 4 women with saris, you know, and they all said, you know, good morning, you know, like this. And so I'm going there, and I'm going to the entrance of the hotel, and there, you know, 6 Sikhs with big turbans, all, each one 2 meters tall, you know, and they salute and say, you know, good morning, sir, good morning. You know, I'm going with the camera outside, you know, there is the garden, also quite a big garden. I'm going out to the street, and there's the street, and there's cars, and it was, you know, noises, a lot of cars like this. I'm staying on the street, maybe 2 seconds, you know, a lot of noise like this, and I'm going with the camera to the sidewalk, and there on the sidewalk, there are people, you know, half naked on the floor, you know, somebody there, from my bed to his bed. That was the film, okay. So I'm saying, okay, that for me, you know, there's something, again, it's just a visual, but maybe it says something about, you know, something about the place, that kind of a film. But I'm telling you that also in my country, let's say for political reasons, I see something and I say, wow, you know, let's say there are ideas like that, but I can just carry on with this, so I'm going to stop and move to the next, you know, the step. So I'm saying, let's say that somebody made a short film like this, and now he feels that he wants to make dialogue something and do something which is already 25 or 30 minutes. You know, I have, again, a lot of examples. I'm trying to think. I think, you know, the best thing is really, you know, I can give you from, you know, short stories or ideas which, you know, like things, where do ideas come from? You know, I'm going to, you know, I'm going to speak about that. Where do ideas, you know, where ideas are born? And sometimes, you know, it's something that you hear. Let's say, I want to make a film now, which a part I want to shoot in India, and it's based on a story that a friend of mine told me, something that happened in his childhood. I'm going to tell it to you in a few minutes. So one of the films I made was based on an author called Isaac Bashevis Singer. And so I'm just telling you the story just because it's, I think the frame is right. It's that kind of film, which is not a feature film, but immediately when you hear the story, you can see that it has, you know, an opening, and there's something that closes at the end with the opening. I'm going to be impolite and drink a little bit. So this is a story. You see a man, you know, very respectable man with a suit, is going to, he's standing in front of a bordello in a place where there are prostitutes inside, and he sees there is a woman there, and he goes to her and he says to her, "Listen, can you help me?" And she says, "What do you want?" He says, "I promised you, I will pay you very well, and I just want you to, I need your help. This is Sunday, I need you for a few hours, I'll pay you for this." And, she says, "Okay." So he takes her to a hairdresser, gets her hair fixed beautifully, makeup. He takes her to a shop, and he buys her a beautiful dress. And, then he explains to her that he got divorced from his wife, and every Sunday he comes to take their child outside, to the playground or to the park or something like that, and he wants her to pose as his girlfriend. So, the story, they come, and there is the wife, and she says, "Who is this?" And you can see her thinking, like, "Who is this lady?" And, the boy is maybe, again, 11-year-old or something like that. He comes together with them, and they go to the park. And it's there's a nice friendship that develops between the prostitute and this boy. She's very, rascalish. She's very, has, temperaments, and she's very funny. And she plays with the child, and the film ends, they bring them back, and her husband, the former husband, says to her goodbye. She says, no, please come, have tea or coffee or something like that. And they are convinced to stay there. And all the time, the woman is trying to figure out who this lady is. And at one point, she sees that when I'm saying there are scenes there which are nice, where you see that the prostitute doesn't know how to handle, because she gives her a certain cake and so on, and everybody eats with a little fork. But the prostitute takes the cake like this, and she bites it like that, and with the gloves on. So it looks very funny. And then when the boy sees that the prostitute did that, the boy also takes his cake with the hand. The mother is very upset with him. And at the end, there's one point where the wife realizes, she sees the sticker on the dress with a price on it, and she understands what's happening. And then they have some sort of an argument, the husband and the wife, and he takes her and he says, "Listen, I like you so much." The husband, they're walking in the street with this woman with the dress that, is so beautiful and is not from her world. And he says, "Come, we're going to church now, we're going to get married, I really like you," and so on. She doesn't know. And then as they walk, suddenly the man that I didn't tell you about in the beginning, who is in charge of the prostitute, he takes care of the prostitutes in the bordello, suddenly he sees this man with one of the women who works at the place. So they have a fight, he beats him up and takes the prostitute back to the bordello. That's basically the story. But I'm saying, it's basically there are, let's say, the opening scene, of him finding her, then, getting her the beautiful necklace and the dress and the hair, and then, the scene where they come to pick up the child, the scene in the park with the child, then back when they're eating, and then back when they have the fight and the prostitute returns. That's something like maybe 35 minutes, 40 minutes. It's not a feature. So I think that it's a good exercise. And I think that you can find good short stories, or, you can have good ideas. I'm telling you now, somebody told me a story, a relative of mine, told me a story that he said that there was, again, I don't want to say a relative, because immediately my family, seeing this on Facebook, is going to say, "Hey, you meant X or Y." But, somebody died, and his son, was in the army. And one day, his son, he brought a friend of his from the army to go home, and there is the widow who already is, let's say, 1 year, her husband died, and she's very lonely, and she's, suddenly there is this soldier that comes, her son's, and they put music in the evening, and suddenly he sees that his mother is, dancing with his friend, with his soldier friend, and there is, this very I think interesting situation where you have a soldier who suddenly has a chance, to dance. Maybe he has, sexual, he's aroused. He's 20, she's maybe 40, and then the embarrassment of his friend, being angry maybe with his friend, being angry with his mother. I'm saying again, it's you know, an idea is born for something that I can do with it, which I didn't, but I'm just telling you, that kind of a thing that I heard, I said, wow, that is right for that kind of a film, which is not a feature. Okay, I think that I want to speak about feature films. I hope that people are finding this interesting. So I want to speak about feature films. I'm trying to think that maybe I'm going to suddenly break. And break, I mean, in the line of thought, I'm going to speak about the way that I make films, which is a very unusual way. And sometimes people do it unintentionally, but I do it intentionally. Sometimes I feel that a year or two passes, 3 years, you know, and people say, wow, you make a film every 3-4 years. And for me, it is, wow, there were so many days where I didn't do anything. You know, a year is a long time not to do anything. So I found a way of doing something with almost no money. So I'm saying, let's say that somebody here works in a pharmacy or, you know, has some sort of a regular job. I don't think one has to say, I'm a filmmaker and just do that, you know. I think you can have a small job and do something on the side. And I'm saying, like what I said before about the two kinds of scripts. You have a script which you're submitting to regular places. You want to make a mainstream film and so on. But at the same time, you don't want to rot and wait. You want to do something. So what I do is, let's say sometime I have a story, like that film that I told you about, Soldier of the Night, which is a horror film. You know, and I don't have much money, you know, so I'm saying I'm going to, instead of going to the movies and so on, I'm going to shoot 2 days during the month, okay? 2 days. I have money to shoot 2 days. I'm getting a very small crew. I don't need assistant. I'm not taking a makeup person, not taking decor. I'm having my 6 people. But this way, I don't need, I'm my own producer. Let's say I'm going to have a birthday party. So I'm calling a friend, I'm saying, please get your friends, tell them I'm shooting a movie, I need their help. And you're doing it yourself. And so I'm saying what you need is sometimes money for the taxi, sometimes money for the food. And at this stage, I also pay people. I pay the cameraman always. I never, not deferred. I pay the people, I pay the actors. But I tell the actors, listen, it's a problem of continuity. I ask the actors, please don't cut your hair, you know, because this is going to take time. I'm shooting only 2 days this month. But the thing is, I shoot also the next month, you know, 1 day or 2 days. So this way, if I shoot in a year, it's 24 days. 24 days is definitely enough to make a feature. So, but this way, I can control it. Here I want to give you an advice that many times, you know, I find people and say, Dan, you know, I admire your work and I'm willing to work for nothing. And I'm saying, you know, this is the worst thing that I can do is have people work for nothing and just be there. Because, first of all, when you tell somebody, okay, I'm willing, it means that, first of all, even if he's not being paid, in the morning, you have to pick him up with the rest. You have to give him breakfast, right? Then when you're shooting, it's in the corridor, people are going to be smoking and so on, you'll see him there, and then, you know, he's going to be there for lunch, and then in the evening you have to worry about how to return him to his house and so on. So I'm saying, I prefer to have somebody who knows to do 2 things than have somebody who knows nothing. So, okay, I'm going back now to the feature film. So I'm not saying that always. If I have all the money, I do the film. I shoot it normally, consecutively, in one piece. But sometimes when I have it very difficult, like that film, Soldier of the Night, and there's another film which I had, it was shown in IFFI 2 years ago, a film called The Director's Angst. It's about a director who has a film being shown in cinema. You know, this film took maybe 3 years to make. In other words, I shot it to, you know, like then over a year and a half. And what are the advantages of shooting a film sporadically? You have a lot of advantages. Because, first of all, you know, you can have, I like the flexibility that you have. First of all, you're independent. There's no producer pushing you and saying to you, hey, you know, I was with this lady 2 nights ago, you have to use her as the actress, or, you know, it could be the opposite. there's, not saying we need some violence, change the ending, and so on. You are the boss, you're in control, you can do what you want. And then, let's suppose you don't like an actress that you thought was good, or an actor that you thought was good, suddenly turned out to be a terrible actor. Okay, you kill him, You spent only 2 days. It's not that you've shot half of the movie and you have to shoot it over again. 2 days, okay? Say, wow, we met this thing. The woman, the lawyer, the woman lawyer was fantastic, okay? Let's increase her part. You can do it because you shot only 2 days. And then after 3-4 days, I'm saying after, let's say, 2-3 months, you edit the material, you look at it, and you show it to the 6 friends you trust, and you can get ideas how to change the script, make it more interesting. So you have that kind of a freedom that you don't have when you shoot a film in one piece, and you're stuck. And also there is something, and I'm telling you, like most of my films were between 14 and 26 days, but I shot a film that I think was shown here, a film in 2010, and I made, at the same time, I made the television series from it, so it was 40 days that I shot. So I'm saying 40 days, again, speaking about a man like me, okay? I'm 77 years old, and sometimes, I make the average of the age of the group. Everybody there is 25, 30, and I am really suddenly come from that. And at my age, after lunch, I like to sleep for an hour. And I can't have the crew and the actors, waiting for an hour for the director to, wake up. So I'm saying, it's to do it 40 days in a row is really not an easy thing. And again, I'm saying something about my personal taste that I don't, people say, Dan, there is a television series and it'll have 100 segments and you can work on it and so on. There's something about it which is against my nature, even if there's a lot of money in it. Because this thing, of doing another episode, for me is boring. I like that everything will be by itself. I don't like, I don't like routine. I like everything to be different. I like unpredictable things. I like mistakes. I like. So I'm saying, when you have a series and 2 years I'm going to be shooting this endless sausage, the string of sausages. No, I prefer to make one film every 2-3 years and still survive. That's another thing we'll speak about. I hope we have time. I think that I'm going to speak now about ideas for feature films. And this is, I think, the most important thing, is to have good ideas. So there are 2 things that, for me, are key. And many times I wrote the idea like on a page or 3/4 of a page. You describe what your film is about. And so for certain films, let's say if you take La Ventura by Antonioni, obviously in 1 page it doesn't mean anything because it had to do with his personality as a director. But some stories, people see and say, wow, what a great idea. So I'm telling you that, and another thing that one has to take into account, and people don't think about it, but the art of telling a story is very important. Because in Israel, like there was one guy, I'm not going to mention his name, people said he knows how to tell a story. He would sit in a noisy restaurant with an investor from Holland, and he would tell him a story and say, I have this idea, it's going to be with these actors and so on. The guy'd say, okay, I'm giving you $2 million. Just because of his way of telling a story. It doesn't, then, they say some of his films were terrible. It had nothing to do with the way he told the story. So I'm saying, people, you have to think about it. Because in life you get chances. Suddenly you sit in somewhere, you're in an elevator with somebody and you say, I have a great story. He says, okay, come, let's sit here on the sofa, tell it to me. And you have 10 minutes to tell it. So I'm saying that is very important. And also that page. I'm telling you that maybe, I think about 3 years ago, I had an idea for a film that takes place in China. And I wrote a letter to the Israeli ambassador in China and to his cultural attaché, and I said, look, I have an idea. I'm looking for a Chinese producer to make this film in China. And there was this 1 page. They gave it to the China-Israel Chamber of Commerce, very the most legitimate way of trying to raise money. And then 2 weeks later, the lady got to me and she said, we found a Chinese producer. He said, it's the best idea he's heard in the last 20 years. He was 18, I'm joking. And he, is interested. What do you want? So I said, I want $30,000 for myself to write the screenplay, another $30,000 for a Chinese lady, a screenwriter or a man screenwriter who will collaborate with me, because I'm not familiar with the nuances and the patterns of behavior of the Chinese. So he said to me, okay, and he brought me 5 times to China, with the people translating English, Hebrew, etc. And we wrote a screenplay, and now he's trying to get money for the film. And that's another story which is also interesting. So I'm saying that page is very important. I'm going to, because I'm going to show you something, one more little thing. Then before we go to the features, ideas for features, to also give me a chance to rest for 3 minutes. I'm going to show you an opening of a documentary film I made. I'm saying my family is very interesting, and I have a very interesting life story. And in Israel, documentaries are very valued. We have foundations that give money, a lot of money to documentaries. So again, first of all, we have, like in feature films, there is something which is called development money. So there is something which is called the Israel Cinema Fund, and there is another foundation that you can send 1 to 3 pages idea. They give you dates, and they have these lectors or advisors who read these 3 pages, and they select every year, let's say, 10 synopsis that they say you're getting development money to write it as a screenplay. And they give something like 60,000 shekels, which is a lot. It's something like, maybe close to maybe $15,000, between $15,000 and $20,000. So I'm saying, somebody say, okay, I'm going to stop my work at the pharmacy, and I'm going to now write my first screenplay. So here also, I went to them and I told them, listen, I have an interesting story. I'm telling you now the story of my life. My father lived in Palestine. I'm speaking about end of the 20s. And he decided to study medicine, and he went to Italy to study medicine in the 30s of the previous century. My mother, fled Germany because of the rise of the Nazi party. She wanted to also study medicine. She went to Italy. My parents fell in love, and he brought her to Jerusalem. Because Second World War was raging, my father decided to join the British Army. My father was in the British Army fighting against the Nazis, and he was brought to Cairo. And there in Cairo, he met, his name was Colonel Wingate, the man that led the campaign in Ethiopia. And my father, it was a young 26-year-old surgeon, was asked to come to Ethiopia to fight against the Italians. It doesn't matter. But at that time, the Emperor of Ethiopia, His Majesty Haile Selassie, was in London, and Wingate, the general, brought him to help get the masses, the Ethiopian masses, to help the British against the Italians. There were also, by the way, Indian soldiers over there fighting in Ethiopia against the Italians. And my father was assigned to be Haile Selassie, the Majesty's private doctor. So my father, at the age of 26, was assigned to be His Majesty's doctor, and they came and were going with the soldiers, fighting all the way to the capital, to Addis Ababa. I was at that time in Jerusalem with my mother. I was just born before that. And in 1942, after the Italians were beaten, my mother was allowed to come with me as a baby. And I was there 3.5 years in Ethiopia. So I lived there. I learned Amharic, the language there. My father says I spoke it better than Hebrew and English. Doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is, so it's an interesting thing. Then I went back to Israel. So I said, I have these interesting things. Also, my grandfather on my mother's side is Christian. So in my family, in my mother's family, her brother was in the German army, okay? And she was half Jewish, and she ran away to Italy. So there I had an uncle who was in the German army, in the Nazi army. I'm saying, crazy story. So I told this to this guy at the documentary film fund, and he said, okay, it passed. They asked me to show a 10-minute you know, what I want to do. I showed them like a promo of 10 minutes, and they gave me, for me at that time, it was, they said, you can follow your parents for 3 years and make a film. And I think I got something like $130,000, which for me it was fantastic. I could stop everything and just be there. Now, I'm lucky because I built on top of my parents' house, I built another apartment. Maybe we will see it in what I'm going to show you. I think it's in there in the beginning. So we live, like there was my parents' house, it was flat. At a certain point they said, do you want to live with us? I said, if my brothers and sisters agree, I agree. I built on top of them a flat there, and there I lived there, and my parents lived downstairs. So every time my mother would cut my father's hair, she'd say, Dan, I'm cutting your father's hair. So I would come down with my little camera and I would shoot. So I want to show you this documentary which I made, which is called Spoken with Love. And okay, let's see it just to show you a beginning of, we'll see 3-4 minutes, and then I will stop. Thank you.
יחסית, גם כשהוא עומד, פתאום קל, מאחורי הראש לו, יש המון אור יחסי. אוקיי, בסדר? שקט, לא סאונד. סאונד ספיד. אוקיי, סאונד ספיד. אמא, תספרי קצת על הסרטים, איך זה להיות אמא של במאי סרטים?
במרחק היה טראומטי ביותר. אנחנו נסענו לחוץ לארץ ואתה שאלת אותנו אם אתה יכול לצלם בבית. אמרנו, בבית אין שום בעיה, בבקשה. אז אנחנו נסענו, חזרנו הביתה, ואני פתחתי את הבית ומשהו הייתה לי הרגשה שאני לא בבית שלי. אמרתי לאבא, זו פעם האחרונה שדינה מצלם אצלנו בדירה. אף פעם לא עמדתי בזה, במילה.
אבל מעבר לקושי הפיזי, כן? יש את הקושי הזה של להיות קשור ליוצר שהוא משתמש בחומרים מהבית. הדוגמה הכי בולטת זה בביוגרפיה של בן. אני מניח שכל מיני בעיות פסיכולוגיות, ופתאום הן יוצאות בסרטים. אני חושב שיש גרעין, משהו בהתחלה, בילדות המוקדמת. כנראה שזה בכל אופן טען את הסוללות להמשך.
תראה, אני חושבת שהורים לא יכולים, they can never do right. זה גם, יש גם עוד דבר אחד. יש דברים שאני זוכרת שאני נורא סבלתי מהם בתור ילדה. עכשיו, אני בתור אימא רציתי מכם למנוע את זה. אבל אתם לא סבלתם מזה, אתם סבלתם מדבר אחר. זה...
ומדברים אחרים.
מדברים אחרים, זה הקושי. אפילו
שאי אפשר ללמוד.
האמא הכי טובה לא יכולה להתקבל על זה. זהו.
לפני כ-20 שנה, בתקופה שרורו, נומי ואמנון האחים שלי חיו באמריקה, הוריי הציעו לי לחזור לחיקם ולבנות בית בקומה שמעליהם. הרגשתי שזאת הזדמנות להשיב לי חוב ילדות ישן, ומיד הסכמתי. מאז אנחנו חיים בשכנות, וכל יום שישי הוריי עולים אלינו לארוחה משפחתית. סיפור האהבה הגדולה של אמא ואבא נמשך כבר 70 שנה. מילדותי אני עוקב אחר היחסים העדינים והיפים שביניהם, בתחושה של השתאות וקנאה. אמא ואבא נפגשו על שפת הים באוסטיה שליד רומא בשנת 1937. אבא הגיע לאיטליה מפלסטינה בשנת 1932 כדי ללמוד רפואה. אמא הגיעה לאיטליה מגרמניה והתחילה אף היא ללמוד רפואה, וכך הם נפגשו. עד היום אני משוכנע שלהוריי הייתה השפעה גדולה על ההיסטוריה העולמית, ולמעשה כל מה שקרה, קרה בגללם. מה שברור הוא שהוריי לא יכלו להיפגש בשום מקום אחר אלא רק ברומא, כי שם קרו הדברים החשובים. מספר חודשים אחרי שהוריי נפגשו והתאהבו, נפגשו ברומא עוד 2 אנשים, שגם להם הייתה השפעה על מה שיקרה. הדוצ'ה, בניטו מוסוליני, מנהיגה של איטליה הפשיסטית, נפגש עם הפירר, שליטה של גרמניה הנאצית, אדולף היטלר.
Non so che cosa hanno finito con lui. Sì, allora sappiamo, non abbiamo visto ancora, ma fra poco avremo alcune copie, un mucchio di copie che ci danno.
כן. אתה מצלם אותי עכשיו?
כן, זה מפריע? צריך להתאפר קודם?
זהו, נכון.
אמא, החיים באיטליה.
Okay. So now we're going back to feature films, and I'm speaking about ideas for features and where they come from. One day, my sister calls me. I was in New York, and she says to me that a neighbor has a neighbor of ours, a young man who was is doing his military reserves, was found shot with a bullet in his head. And then the army said that he committed suicide. And you know, when I spoke to people, I said, this is a friend of mine, his name was Yossi, and I knew him very well. And suddenly, you know, he was doing he left his base and with his gun, and suddenly he was found in a valley in the north of the country with a bullet in his head. The army said he committed suicide. Also, you know, there's a whole thing of honor because of the family. Once he's committed suicide, it's less than if he was killed by some enemy or something like that. So there was a big argument like that. But I noticed when I spoke to friends, they say, it's probably the Arabs, you know, they probably this, and they forced him and they took a gun and like that. So when I heard this, it bothered me because I said, okay, now there is a demonization of the Arabs. You know, they are, everything bad that happens, you know, there's something like that with the, you know, the black people in some white community, everything bad that happens, say it's the black, or it's the Jews, you know, the Jews did it, or it could be, I know also in this country, sometimes you say, it's these, the gypsies, you know, from the other camp. So I didn't like it, and it made me think of an idea for a film. I said, could I think of an idea for a film where the murderer would be somebody that looks, you know, like me, somebody regular, you know, who is a regular student and is a good citizen, pays his taxes on time and everything. And then I thought of a plot, and I made the film, and I'm telling you now the idea for the film. There is a series of murders that take place in my country, and the victims are soldiers. Somebody is killing soldiers. Somebody takes a car, he stops where soldiers are hitchhiking, he tells soldiers to come on, he's going to take them to Jerusalem, to Tel Aviv, to another city, but actually he finds a quiet place and he shoots them and he kills them. And the story is told from a woman's point of view. There's a beautiful woman, she's working in a restaurant, she meets a young man, and they, you know, he asks, there's some chemistry between them, and he takes her to his apartment. And then something develops between the two of them, and from time to time, he himself tells her, listen, I'm doing something for the Mossad, from a secret service or something, I have these errands. And slowly we understand that she's actually living with a murderer, who kills these people, and she thinks that he's actually working for the government or for the Israeli army, you know, and doing a very important secret job. And then again, it's not so important, but we find out that he's a psychopath, that he wanted to join the Israeli army because of a medical problem. The doctor, you know, said to him, I'm sorry, you cannot serve with the others. And he wanted, you know, again, I'm speaking in terms of very superficial psychology. He wanted to be a hunter together with them. He wanted to kill, to be a regular soldier. So now, like, you know, by killing soldiers, he feels that he becomes one of them, you know, like, let's say, the murder of John Lennon, or, you know, cannibals who kill and eat people's hearts or brains, and believing, you know, being a part, you know, that suddenly they become them. So here, this was something that happened, you know, next door, and I've adopted it to a film. Because I want also to give you a chance to ask questions and so on, I'll tell you a little film that I want to make, which has to do with India. Maybe, okay, before that, I wanted to speak about ideas for scenes, okay? And so I'm going to start with, where do I get my ideas for, you know, when I write a script, there's certain things, like I told you with a short story, or, you know, something that I say, this could make a good short film. I'm saying also the same thing, suddenly something happens in life, and I say, wow, you know, that would be great if that would take place, if it fits a film of mine. And I'm telling you a little story about my mother, who unfortunately isn't alive anymore, but my mother, whom you've seen here in the film. I had an uncle who was a very famous architect, and at that time he was not working anymore. He was 96 years old, and he was living not far away from us, maybe 300 meters from my house, and he was in an old age home where many, you know, old people live, and they are taken care of. And my mother would go and visit him, and we would see him very, you know, seldomly, on maybe once a month, once every 2 months. There'd be an occasion, they would bring him over for dinner or something like that. But he would be most of the time there. My parents were invited to go to Australia. So my mother said, Dan, we're going to Australia. You will have to take care of this 96-year-old uncle. And I said, fine. So I said, we need, you know, to come together there so I know what to do. And I came to his place, and it was a very small room. And there he was, and she said, you know, that he's there. And I noticed that on the shelf, there were 4 grapefruits. And she said, these grapefruits are not from this place. You have to go to the grocery or this place where they sell these fruit, and you have to buy them. Every morning, you know, he eats half a grapefruit in the morning. When he finishes them, you have to go to the place and buy new grapefruits. So I said, okay. So anyhow, 2-3 days, my parents left for Australia, and after 2-3 days, you know, I'm going to visit him, and I'm coming there, you know, and I say, hi, how are you, Werner, everything is all right? And then I noticed there are no grapefruits on the shelf. So I went to the lady, you know, in the dining room. I said to her, maybe in the refrigerator. She checked, she said, no, I'm very sorry, there isn't, you know? So, you know, I said, okay, I bought some more grapefruits, I put there. And then I called my mother. I said, Mother, listen, you know, I came there. It was only after 3 days. You know, it should have lasted 8 days. And she said, Dan, don't worry. You know, he wakes up in the middle of the day a few times. He thinks it's breakfast, and he eats another half a grapefruit. Okay, now for me, there was something very nice about this story, something special, because I said to myself that in a way, you know, life compensates him. You know, like every day for me, for him is 6 days maybe. And so it's something I said to myself, wow, it's interesting. If I write a feature film and this kind of a story would fit, I will use it. I'm giving one more example of a scene, of a film that was shown here at IFFI. You know, when my films are shown, I am always very nervous. And I'm always standing outside, or I'm going inside, checking that the focus is all right and so on. And then somebody's coughing, or people are, you know, talking, you know, and I really want to tell them, hey, listen, you know, why cough in my film? You know, it's terrible. You know, people now on their cell phones or whatever, you know, say, no, it's very important. So I always feel I'm very nervous. So I took something that happened in real life, but I took it to an extreme because it was like a satire, a comedy. So this is a situation that came from real life. I'm in my film, you know, they're starting to show my film, and I'm walking nervously outside. Sometimes I put my ear to the door to see at what scene it is. And suddenly I see two women walking out. And then, you know, they're walking out and they're talking. And I kind of them say, hey, please, you know, why are you leaving the cinema? What happened? You didn't like the film? I said, it's none of your business. I said, okay, listen, I'm the film director. You know, I worked on it a lot of time. It took me 2 years or 3 years. You know, please just tell me what happened and so on. Sir, please, we have to go to the bathroom. You know, so we're going down like this. So I said, okay, you had to wait all this time? You had to wake up a whole line of people? Couldn't you go to the bathroom at home? You had to do it now in the middle of my film? And she says, sir, I have diarrhea. And I say, what did you eat? Okay. So I'm just giving it as an example of something that comes from real life. You know, in my film, I made it, you know, I pulled it a little bit, you know, like too much. Okay. So these are ideas for this. Now I'm going to tell you about my film, and then we will have a Q&A. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but I'll just tell you how I invented it, or how it was born. Now I'm saying these things that I'm telling you, like the one with the from bed to bed, etc. Actually, each one of us witnesses it, but some people don't pay attention. So, you know, and some people use these, you know, artists who are painters or sculptors or musicians and so on. A friend of mine who was with me in kindergarten, actually, and then in school, and then he told me that when he was in the army, one day his mother called him and told him she's in deep trouble and she needs his help. And then he, you know, she spoke to his commanders in the army. He was able to come back, and she told him that his father is at his grandmother and his father is ill. And then he found out that also when he was a child, his father is bipolar, you know, he has mania depression, you know, he has mania depression. So when he has a mania, you know, he spends more money and, you know, he's completely out of control. When he's in a depression, suddenly for maybe 2-3 months, you know, he's like facing the wall, not able to move, being very depressed. And he told me that because his father was a contractor in the south of the country, sometimes he was supposed to pay salaries to the people who were working. They would come, and in order to face them, she said to them that he went abroad. And also he, as a child, from time to time, his mother said, your father is abroad. But actually, he wasn't abroad. She was hiding his father at the grandmother's home, you know, until he would get out of his depression. So there was something about this situation. I said, okay, I changed the story. I said to myself, this would be interesting, to make a film about a boy who is 10, 11 years old, and he, you know, one day wakes up, there's nobody at home, suddenly his mother and his brother is in the army, his brother has a girlfriend, and they plan after the army to go to India, like many Israeli soldiers plan to. And they come back, and he says, where were you? And they say, we just were at the airport, we took your father. And he says, where to? They said, India. So the boy, he says, but why didn't father embrace me? Why didn't you wake me up? They said, no, he just went for 2-3 days, he'll come back, don't worry, it's nothing, and so on. And then the next day he says, I want to speak to father, and so on. The mother says, listen, he's in an area in India where there's no telephone, you know, you cannot speak to him on the telephone. So this is the story that I developed. It's called My Father's Secret India, and it's about a boy, but the heart of the story is something that I invented. It has to do with something else that also I learned from my family, and that is the heart of the story is this boy, because of his longing for his father, and because his brother in the army is busy, and because his mother is busy all the time, he doesn't know, but she says that the grandmother is sick. Actually, she's taking care of the father. Because of that, he decides to befriend an Indian woman. You know, there are many Indians who come to Israel to work with old people and do all kinds of jobs. So he befriends an Indian woman who's about 35 years old, who takes care of an elderly woman. So when the story happens, he befriends this woman, but suddenly the old lady dies. And the woman, the Indian woman, they tell the son of the old lady says to her, listen, you have to leave the apartment in 10 days. And he's also cheating her. He doesn't want to, because, you know, when a worker works for a few years, obviously he accumulates like a, you know, certain kind of a fee. he's not willing to pay, hoping that she will be deported or she will leave the country, and he will not have to pay her the money that he owes her. So the boy who is now, this young boy, our hero, who thinks that his father is in India, befriends her because he wants her to tell him about India. And there's a nice friendship that develops between them. And she takes him because the mother also sees that there's nobody there. His friends are going on some trip, the boy's friends. So the mother says to the Indian that she would appreciate if she would take care of him. So through her, he gets to know the life of the Indian workers in Israel. So, on Saturday they play cricket or they watch movies, and then, sometimes, 10 workers rent an apartment in which they're all sleeping together. On the weekends, they sleep where they're working. On the weekends they have an apartment which there are 10 beds together. So he gets to know this world, this boy, and then slowly, suddenly, one day he goes with his friends in the street, and suddenly he sees his father from his back in a taxi, and he says to his mother, "I saw father." She says, "You're mistaken, it's your imagination," etc. And then he follows his mother, and he discovers his father, and there's it's more elaborate. But I'm saying it's something, again, that was told by my friend, and that's how I developed it. I think that now we'll put the lights on the audience, and I will gladly answer questions if you still have the strength. Thank you. Can you? I don't know what the time is. He's putting the light? What time is it now? I just want to have an idea. Okay. So, if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer. Yes, please. Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Congratulations for Lifetime Achievement Award.
Thank you.
And my question is to you.
Thanks.
I just saw your documentary, like 3-4 minutes, and whatever I could make out from this documentary, I felt that you are telling the story about your family, and as well you are telling the world account, like 2 countries. And so does it have any influence from Andrei Tarkovsky's documentary Ivan's Childhood?
I didn't understand the last sentence.
Does it have any influence from the documentary of Andrei Tarkovsky, Ivan's Childhood?
Yes. No. It's sometimes you make a film, a love story, or youth or something, and people say there've been other films which are like this. And I think a lot of filmmakers, certain terrible things happened in my childhood, and I think a lot of people. Like this, and then you see it in your. I made a film here which is going to be shown called The Ben's Biography, and I touch on it, and this has to do with the way I am and so on. But I'm saying it's not influenced by anybody.
Okay, so thank you. And my second question is, sir, you must have shot many hours footages for this documentary. So what was your process in the editing room? How did you approach it? Like, can you please shed light on it?
I'm lucky because I don't have to pay the editor. She's my wife. And, first of all, it wasn't easy because, you're shooting a lot of material, a lot. And, I was lucky because, sometimes I was doing let's say I was doing an industrial, or I was making a film just for the electricity department in Israel. And they said to me, "Dan, we want a film to advertise the electricity department." And I said, "Okay." They're giving me money as a producer, and the first interview is at 11 o'clock at the university with someone. So I said, "There is the cameraman. I have the cameraman. I have the soundman. I have the equipment. What am I going to do? Why not use it?" So I said to my parents, this is already 20 years ago, "Please sit down, tell me about your childhood." So in this film, there's some scenes where you see suddenly that they're much younger, you understand? And so obviously they were, again, it's not like today, and I'm old-fashioned in this. I'm used to not taking many takes. I know already, what I want, so usually I take 3-5 takes. It's not like here. Today what they do is they shoot 20 hours, they just let the camera go, and then the editor has to break his head and so on. So it wasn't that difficult, but still there was a lot of material. And we tried, you know how it is, you invite friends, until we found what we thought was the right format or the right this.
Thank you.
Please, somebody there, maybe? Okay. Yes. We can't hear you, but yes. Can you speak? Try again. If not, speak loudly.
I and my wife, we are starting out indie filmmakers based in the US. And we did a short film, just the two of us, no budget, no crew. We handled everything from pre to post.
I'll repeat this question. Go ahead.
And we are now ready with our first feature film script. And
The screenplay.
yeah, straight.
Yes.
And so it's quite encouraging to hear about your tips. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of encouragement to get it made. My question is, once we have the film made somehow, how do we go about trying to get a distribution? What has been your experience?
Okay. Okay. So, this gentleman says that he and his wife made a short film. I think they're based in the US. And they're speaking, he's asking when they finished their first feature film about distribution. Look, again, I'm interested in making the film, and then what I used to do in the past was give it to distributors. I said immediately I was not interested whether the film failed or didn't fail, or it was successful. It was just making another film. And it was a mistake because, again, if I make a demystification of the Hollywood formula and saying, wow, it's so difficult to make a film, to produce a film, when I think it's very simple to make a film. I think the technique is also very simple. I think, the question is talent. So I think also I made a mistake, and only in the last 8 years, I'm involved also in distribution. I decided. So I'm telling you that I think it all has to do with the same thing that I spoke about before, with flexibility. And what I said before about that the big market is for feature films, and you have to say, what is my film about? So like, let's say I made a film which is about an immigrant who comes after the pogroms, after many Jews were slaughtered in Russia. She comes to Palestine, and so I said to myself, who would it interest? So I said, I see. Oh, it would interest historians. It's based on a novel. So I said maybe libraries in Israel would be interested in it. So I found out, psychiatrists. So I would go through the internet, to these things, and I would say to them, listen, my film is starting to play in that cinema in this city, and I would say, please, I will be there in the first night, and I would try to encourage them to come. But the key is the festival. You finish a film, you try for the most important festival, which are Cannes, Venice, Berlin. Now it's more, yes, Sundance, IFFI, Shanghai Film Festival. I could mention a few more, Tokyo, etc. So I'd say the first thing is to try to get it to important festivals, because that's the places where people will see it, and it might run from there. Any more questions?
Yes.
So,
yes.
new film.
How do you cut?
No, speak to the microphone.
While adapting real-life stories, many filmmakers, to add entertainment value, they take too much of cinematic liberties and make the film illogical, and the film might end up being not such a good movie. So how do we strike a balance while adapting real-life stories?
I don't know. It's okay. I understood your question. Thanks. I'm saying that obviously, say in my films, it's not real-life stories, because there is also an element of fantasy. Wants to strengthen the fetus or the embryo, so she's sitting on branches, and she's crawling on branches, all kinds of. So I'm saying it's not exactly. I'm saying it's also imagination. I'm saying. Look, I think it has to do with imagination. You are lucky, because when I was your age, I think, it was filmed, and it's very expensive. And it was to shoot 16 millimeter, 400 feet was already, to buy the film, $100, to develop it, another $150, so it was $250 to see the rushes. And then, you're sending it to a lab, you're waiting for it to come back. Very, very complicated, where now you can really, for no money, shoot something which have 3 hours. You can shoot 3 hours. So I'm saying that now it's easier to make film. Many more films are being made. It's good because it's not only, people poor can make films. On the other hand, there's a lot of rubbish. A lot of terrible films are being made. So, but I think it's a good time to be a filmmaker. Okay, please.
I have 6 questions, but I will limit it to 3. Okay?
I could have said 12 and cut it to 6, but it's all right.
See, I have been following Israel's geopolitical context for many years. Now, I will contrast it with Iran. Now, at your country, there is state funding. You got finances from the foundation. But Iran, the situation is quite different. Most of them, they are abroad. And their films are not being released there.
Okay.
Now, my question is this. Many audience, they say there is a repetition in the approach of the Iranian filmmakers. And as a filmmaker, what is your opinion? That is one thing.
Okay, I think, again, because I'm afraid, because maybe other people want to ask, so really maybe you should cut it to 2. The question is good. But I'm saying, I think, Iranians make fantastic films. And I think they're also government supported. The problem is there, and in Israel, it's a very similar problem, that this year there were 700 screenplays submitted to the public foundation. 700, and maybe 10 to 15 got money to make the film. You have in Israel 18 film schools. Can you imagine? Every year, very good film schools. And every year, another 100, 150 women and men filmmakers, are suddenly submitting their screenplays to these foundations. And the money doesn't grow. So it's more filmmakers. We have a lot of talent. And I think in Iran it's the same. I think you have a lot of talent. And I think the government, there are problems there which are maybe more political. So some, have to live abroad, etc. But still, Iran makes fantastic films. Last question.
Really? You had allowed 3.
Okay, no, I don't mind, but go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
You are speaking about ideas. What you hear can be turned into a film or a documentary. But which do you feel it is better? Whether to first write a short story, then convert it into whatever form it takes, documentary or feature film or docudrama, whatever it is.
No. Okay, this is something interesting. You're leading me to an interesting thing. Obviously, no, you don't write a short story to make a documentary or an idea for that. It's not. It's something that you meet in life. So I'm telling you something, that there is something in me which is not, how do you say, they say that behind a successful filmmaker there's always a ruined wife. So I'm saying that I don't think it's good for my family, the kind of life that I'm leading, because many times, I meet somebody. I met a lady, for example, and she told me that she was in the Holocaust, and she saw how, dogs were, the Gestapo dogs tore her father in front of her eyes or something. And I said, wow, nobody's documenting this story, so I'm getting a cameraman and so on, and I'm documenting it. And I'm telling you that I have at least 20 unfinished documentaries where I shot, things which I thought were interesting. And I'm now working on 3 films, which I don't know if I'm going to end, but I'm collecting, I'm going every time I have some free time. There is, again, a man that I know who is very old, is a composer. I don't know if you know in India the song, there was a song very popular in the early 70s, late 60s called Popcorn by Gershon Kingsley. Instrumental, and so he wrote that song for a commercial, became, a very, very wealthy man because of this song. And he wrote the music for my first feature film. So I'm his friend. We were born on the same day. So I'm trying on his birthday to go to New York and visit him. And I'm saying he worked with Leonard Bernstein and with, great names. Nobody ever made a film about him. So meeting him and knowing him, and I'm sure you also know interesting people or stories that could make a good documentary film. So that's how it starts. And so I'm not, again, I hear something, and I'm saying that would make a good story, or I read a short story, or something in the newspaper. Okay? I think yes, please. Okay, we will after that give the director a rest. So, thank you. Okay, let's say last question, please.
So, one general question, sir. See, they named it Master Craftsman. You give primacy
Yes,
to
yes, okay, go ahead.
craft or art.
Speak again. Speak, please. I didn't understand.
No,
Sorry.
whether you feel craft is most important or art is important.
Okay. I think that, thank you for the questions, and please don't, I don't mean to be cruel and so on, but sometimes even when I go outside the theater, somebody speaks to me for 20 minutes and there are other people who want to speak to me. So I have to somehow make it. But, I think that the craft for me is not as important. Obviously, it is how you make the film. But, I identify, I think I admire Bollywood, and I think, there's a lot of energy there, and, there's obviously a lot of money, and because of the money, there are most talented actors and the great writers and so on, so that is that. But I sympathize with those who make artistic films and documentary films, who find no way to distribute them, and I'm telling you that I was here at festivals, again in Lucknow, and I was in Trivandrum and so on, seeing Indian films, and I know a lot of Indian films that you've never seen, because they are made in a small place and they deal with a depressing subject of suicide or whatever, and they're not shown in other parts of India. So I sympathize with them, and my tendency would be to be artistic, and I'm saying among my 20 films, there were 4 or 5 that were very successful, so a commercial also. You can't plan these things. Here, this gentleman, please. Okay.
So, very good afternoon, and
thanks.
Can you please sit down, because you're standing for 2 hours now.
No, it's
I'm
okay.
feeling very guilty
After
about
your question.
Thank you, sir. Now, thank you for coming in. Your teaching has been very inspiring to
Thanks.
probably me and for all of us here.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Indeed, it has inspired the people like us who are also starting off with zero money and trying to do something, and very inspiring, sir. Thank you, number 2. Number 3, now you have been part of these Cannes and the festivals, and you did mention in the last answer also about the festival part. My question would be, with all these limitations and constraints, how do you still look at, because at the end of the day, we don't know about the commercial success. At least we want to showcase our work in one of the major festivals. How, in your own long experiential journey, how do you guide us to prepare or look at certain festivals? Do they have a specification to look at, suppose, say, Cannes? Yeah, this is what they're looking for. This is Toronto Festival. This one is something guideline like that in your experience which you could share with us. Yeah. And
okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I'll just summarize and just say this. Look, again, this is at that time when I made my film, which was shown in Venice in 1972. I think they got maybe 300 entries from all over the world, and they selected the 16 that are going to be in competition. Same thing with when I sent them my first film, The Dreamer, in Cannes, and it was accepted. I think now they get between 2,000 and 3,000 films. They have a lot of committees seeing them, and each one, then one, and then they have to select 16 or 20 films, and one is a Woody Allen film, and the other one is this guy's film, and so on. So the place for a new director and so on is very, very slim. So they have a panorama, they have this, but competition, it's very, very difficult. And there should be more important festival. Now there is Sundance is important, and some like in China, there are new important festivals. I think in India you also have that. So I think you have to just make films, and it was again a big honor to be here at IFFI and to get this unbelievable award. It's really something which is such a, I never expected it. In the beginning they told me, you're invited to come for 4 days and give a master class. So I said, okay, I'm going to come for 4 days. I said, wow, it's going to be boring. I come all this long trip. I'm going to be 4 days and give an hour-and-a-half speech. So I went there and I said, why don't we rent a room at the bazaar, a booth, and I'll be standing there like a clerk and give DVDs and brochures. So at least I'll do something. So they said, okay. So now I was in charge of the bazaar every day from 10 o'clock to 6 in the afternoon. Suddenly they told me, listen, you're coming here for 9 days, you're going to get a Lifetime Achievement Award. So I'm saying, now from morning till night, I'm just busy. But it was great speaking to you. I wish you luck. Thanks.